Hello, hello, hello. I am doing an impromptu live because I didn't get a chance last Wednesday. I was traveling and never it didn't work out to do my live last Wednesday. So I am doing a live today on Sunday at a different time. We'll see how this goes. But we're talking about something someone commented on one of my recent videos about. They said, I'm a people pleaser and have suffered through being verbally abused and berated because I would see walking away as cowardly or giving up. And so I want to talk about that today. Why we I think most of it is as people pleasers, why we will sit and take being belittled or berated or just not being respected. So I want to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how people pleasing causes us to believe that, um, how we grew up thinking that we had to turn the other cheek when someone was belittling us or mistreating us. I want to tell you about something that a client of mine was going through and how I helped her break free from that. And then again, we'll talk about what the commenter said on this video about they didn't want to argue, so they stay silent and hope that the storm will pass over. And then I want to give you a few things that you can do if this is you, if you see walking away when someone is talking disrespectfully to you, mistreating you, verbally belittling you, those kind of things. If you see walking away as being cowardly or that you're giving up or that that would be a hurtful thing to do to the other person, then this video is for you. So, this commenter, again, they said, I'm a people pleaser and have suffered through being verbally abused and berated because I would see walking away as cowardly or giving up. And the first thing I want to say about that is people pleasing causes us to believe this. And why is that? Because when we were kids in childhood, anything that we learned, that we heard, that we experienced up until about the age of 7 becomes our it becomes our program. So if you imagine yourself just being born as a blank computer and everything that you experience and are told and see happening, whether it's by friends or teachers or classmates or your siblings, whoever, pastors, whatever you experience and are told goes into your programming as the software as truth. And then we grow up and we run that program. There is no other way when we're young. It's just the way that we are programmed and conditioned to be. When we become adults, then we can reprogram those things. But that's why when we're young, we're conditioned to believe because maybe you were taught, don't hurt other people's feelings, put them first, be nice. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? So maybe you learn to not speak up. And so we are conditioned to people please. If that's your experience. If it's not, then you maybe you were conditioned to behave in a different way. But I'm speaking mostly to people who were conditioned to be people pleasers and put other people first, because I think that's though we are the type of people who will sit in someone else's disrespect, in them belittling us, and think that we just have to sit there and take it. So we were conditioned from childhood. That's one reason. Um, so we learn things like don't talk back, don't hurt their feelings. We're taught to do unto others. And So we do unto others with the belief that the nicer we are to them, right, the nicer that they'll be back to us. And it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Um, and we believe all of these things that we were taught, that we were conditioned to believe when we were young, that they are the truth. And what happens is then the subconscious mind, your unconscious, your patterns that you're running every day, your subconscious mind's job is to keep you safe, and what it knows as safe is what's predictable, known, and feels normal. And so if you were taught to people please, people pleasing, being nice, not speaking up for yourself, not saying no, not walking away when someone is talking down to you, those things have become normalized to the brain. So then when you think maybe you want to walk away or speak up for yourself, you get this trigger that you probably feel really uncomfortable. And that's because the subconscious doesn't know you speaking up as safe. And so it will send you signals to not speak up, to have you sit there and take it. Maybe you think thoughts like, well, I obviously deserve it, right? And I'm gonna get into that in just a little bit. I don't know that you think those thoughts, and I'd love if you're here to comment, throw a comment in. Do you go through this? Do you see walking away when someone is belittling you, mistreating you, talking down to you? Do you see walking away as being a coward? I would love to know if you can throw that in the chat. Or what other questions do you have about this subject or anything about people pleasing? So we're conditioned to know or to feel what feels safe. But a lot of times, 90% of the time, these things that we were conditioned to believe about ourselves actually are working against us. And so we end up though staying a lot of times because maybe staying and sitting in the mistreatment feels safer, which I know logically doesn't make any sense, but our subconscious, our brain doesn't work on logic. And so we end up sitting there and taking it, and maybe like my client that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, she would sit there and just take the belittling and be in tears, but she thought that she would be a coward if she walked away. So, people pleasing causes us to feel like we would be a coward if we walked away when someone was mistreating us. And again, it like logically, when I think about it now, it doesn't really make sense, but I sat in this so many times with people talking down to me, um, belittling me, berating me, like the commenter said, um, being verbally abusive. But I thought because of the way I was raised and how I was taught to behave, I thought that that was just my lot in life, then that I just had to sit and take it, and that I must have done something wrong, that I deserved what they were saying. So, the next thing I want to talk about is we grow up thinking that we have to turn the other cheek, right? And if you were raised, going to Sunday school, going to church, you probably heard that Jesus turned the other cheek. And I'm going to talk about a different perception of that I heard recently that blew my mind. So stay tuned. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But we think with this with this belief then that we just have to turn the other cheek is that we have to put up with it, right? We get this or we got this story that turning the other cheek was, if if you got hit on this side of the face, if it was physical abuse, right? Or you could use it as verbal abuse, right? They were doing it to this side of the face, then you needed to turn your other cheek so that they could do it to that side of you as well. Is that how you understood that growing up, right? That Jesus turned the other cheek and he he just kept not necessarily taking it, but that he didn't speak up is how I understood it. That he um what's the right word? That he tolerated this, or that he didn't react, maybe is the best way to put it. That he didn't react, he just turned the other cheek. So, oh, and one thing I thought when I was young, or even as an adult, is that if I was just nicer to them, right? If I turned the other cheek and basically ignored what they had done, that's probably a better way to put it. Ignored, didn't speak up um or retaliate against that. If I was just nicer, that they eventually would figure out that they hurt me and they would start being nicer back to me. So it was like this do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And so I would just continue to be nicer and ignore these hurts and these mistreatments, these disrespectful things that people were doing to me, thinking that I just had to take it. I had a client who she came to me, and her main goal with working with me initially was, she said, to not let words hurt her. So she was in a situation where a family member, every time they were together, and it was an elder family member, every time they were together, this family member would belittle her, and to the point of where she would be sitting there in tears. And then when she left the family event or being with this person, she said she would feel horrible about herself, not about the person that was doing it to her. She would feel horrible about herself because she just felt like she must be such a bad person that she deserved this treatment. And she asked me one time in a session the same thing that this person asked me in a video recently, is, would it be cowardly if I just got up and walked out of the room? And the answer is absolutely not. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. What we can do when we are being belittled, talked down to, mistreated physically, but I'm mostly talking about verbal and emotional abuse, because it is abuse. Um, oh, I want to go back to us being nicer to try and get them to be nicer back to us. Us being nicer, that is us not having boundaries, not setting boundaries. And when you think about it, you're being nicer in order to change um, how they treat you, which actually is a little bit manipulative, because you're acting in a way that is trying to get them to change their behaviors toward you. And that's not the way to change this type of behavior from someone else in your life. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a moment. And what happens is, when we're nicer in order to try and get them to be nicer, is we're basically self-sacrificing, because we're shoving down our own emotions. We're shoving down that we're hurt, that um we're hurt, and that we're tolerating this mistreatment, this abusive behavior. And that is that is self-neglect. That is self-sacrifice to do that. And when we tolerate hurtful behavior from others, that's basically abusing ourselves because we're staying there. But again, I understand this is conditioning. We're conditioned to believe that this is the way that we need to behave in order to be accepted and loved and approved of. So it's not your fault that you're doing this, but it is your responsibility to, once you realize that it's happening, to start protecting yourself. And again, I'm going to tell you how to do that. So the responder, this commenter on my video, said, I don't want to argue, so I stay silent and hope the storm will blow over. To that, I say, there's nothing to argue about, right? If someone is disrespecting you, if they're belittling you, they're talking down to you, they're making fun of you, whatever it is that they're doing, it feels like you want to defend yourself, right? Because it just feels natural to want to defend and argue and tell them how wrong they are. But the problem with that is this type of person that is belittling you is not a healthy person themselves. And healthy people don't do this. Healthy people, they, yes, occasionally they may hurt someone's feelings because they misspeak, they say something that they don't really mean, but usually when we're talking about someone belittling you, berating you over and over and over again, they themselves are not a healthy person, emotionally, mentally healthy, because a healthy person would understand that they are acting in hurtful ways, right? So there's nothing to argue about because a healthy person, again, is not going to continue the behavior. An unhealthy person, they want you to argue. They want you to try and defend yourself because that gives them a sense of control. So by you defending and arguing and trying to make or have them see your side of things, just does not work. It does not work with these type of people. Again, if it's a healthy person, you can speak up and say, ouch, that hurt what you said. And a healthy person will see it. Someone who's not healthy won't see it. And then they'll know that they have you backed in the corner. And how do you know if it's healthy or not? You know if they're healthy or not. You know, because this is someone who's belittling you. This probably isn't the first time they've done it, right? So someone who belittles you once out of character, you know when it's out of character and when it's not. So you know the difference. You know who is truly being loving and just said a hurtful thing versus someone who is being manipulative and being mean and cruel for the sake of being mean and cruel and trying to get control. And it doesn't have to be drastic, right? It doesn't have to be these big controlling behaviors or these big um, things for it to be hurtful. And I think that's another thing about when we're conditioned to believe that we have to put everybody else first and that we don't hurt anybody's feelings, is that we think abuse has to be big and grand, right? Or that we have to have marks on our bodies. And emotional abuse is much worse than physical abuse because you can't prove it, right? You can't show a black eye or anything. And I don't mean to diminish any kind of abuse at all. But what happens is we start to justify in our own minds, oh, they didn't mean it. I'll give them another chance. They really didn't mean it. But that just allows it to continue. So don't think that if it is a pattern that you see in another person where they belittle you, where they talk down to you, where they mistreat you, a pattern is not a one-time thing. If it's a one-time thing, that is completely different. It's a different story. So be really clear about that in your own mind. So again, there's nothing to argue about. We think we need to defend ourselves, and that puts us in a corner as soon as we do defend ourselves with someone who is belittling us. And that's what the other person wants. So when we sit there and take it, also, they think it's okay. And a lot of people, again, someone who is healthy and is is has best intentions in mind, but maybe they're doing saying something consistently that hurts your feelings. If you don't speak up, they don't know, right? So sitting there and taking it, they don't ever know. However, if it's a pattern of repeated abuse, like my client with her family member, it was over and over and over again. This person, it wasn't just little things that she was doing that she didn't understand she was doing. She was belittling my client in order to feel superior above her. And she knew she got her as soon as she saw the tears. So when we sit there and take it, someone is going to think that it's okay. But we also don't want to argue and defend because that also makes them feel like they got you. Um, so most likely, because this person said in their comment, don't want to argue, so I stay silent and hope the storm will blow over. And it's most likely this other person is creating the storm. So if we sit there and take it, the storm is not going to blow over, right? Because they're going to continue to berate and belittle as long as they have an audience. And again, most of the time, this is a form of control. And I experienced it in my marriage. Uh, and once I stopped arguing and defending myself, he I believe he started seeing that he was losing control, and that's why he stormed out in a rage, thinking that his rage, now this is my assumption, but based on my experience with him, thinking his rage would make me um try to stop him. And I didn't. And then when he came back later, a couple weeks later or 11 days later, and begged for forgiveness through a letter that he left me, I didn't respond. And I'm going to go into that now. What to do and how to stop just tolerating this behavior, because that's basically what we're doing, is tolerating someone else's unhealthy, hurtful behavior. So, a new perspective on turning the other cheek. I don't know where I heard this. I don't remember where I heard it, but it was recently that I heard that when Jesus turned the other cheek, it wasn't to allow them to do to him what they were doing. It was to get a new perspective. So if you think about, okay, I've got this cheek to you, right? Which I'm seeing you then mostly through this eye. Then I turn my other cheek, and now I have a new perspective. I have a new perspective of this person, of what's happening. And I heard this told this way recently, and I was like, that's really interesting. It's good for us to look at another person with empathy and to recognize we don't know what they went through in their childhood. We don't know how they were raised, how they were conditioned to believe. We don't know what fears or what crap they have going through their mind, just like the things we have going through ours, right? So, turning the other cheek and getting a different perspective of this person and having some empathy for what they're going through, that does not mean tolerating it and sitting there and taking it, but having some empathy for them being a human being, having a human experience on in this earth school is one of the best things that you can do for yourself because it allows you to let go of the the wanting to change it, to wanting to change this thing that's exterior to you, right? It's not something that's within you, it's exterior to you. So you wanting to change them is futile and it just is going to make you suffer. So allowing yourself to see another perspective that this is just a hurt person who is hurting someone else. And there's a saying that hurt people hurt people. So if you can just view them as another human being, another hurt human being who had past experiences that maybe you don't know anything about, that you don't know, again, this is not to say that you're going to tolerate their behavior and sit there and take it, but it will give you some release in that you can let go a little bit of why are they doing this to me? When my ex, now ex, when he was treating me this way, saying these hurtful things to me, like really, really hurtful things to me, I just couldn't understand how someone a few months prior, like, said they loved me and, you know, would it felt like go to the ends of the earth for me, and suddenly now they're saying all these mean and hurtful things, and I couldn't understand it until I heard something about narcissistic personality disorder, that these people are so tormented by their inner self, their inner demon, that all they want to do is find someone else to project everything that they hate about themselves onto this other person and then demolish that other person because they think not logically, they think unconsciously that by diminishing and demolishing another person, that will get rid of that inner demon that they're dealing with. And when I heard that, it really gave me a lot of empathy for narcissistic people to begin with, people that deal with narcissism, but for everybody because we all have stuff that we're dealing with, right? And again, the saying, hurt people hurt people. So if I don't deal with my own stuff, like my people pleasing, all the manipulative stuff that I did to try and keep people in my life, I'm just going to continue to hurt other people coming from the hurt that I felt inside, for myself. So having a new perspective for these people and being able to see them in a new light may help you break free from sitting there and tolerating their disrespect for you, their belittling you. Again, it's not a justification that hurt people, that is not a justification to ignore this behavior. Also, what you can do, how to stop tolerating it, is to start treating yourself the way you want to be treated. I can pretty well guarantee that you speak badly to yourself sometimes, maybe a lot of times. And so the the mistreatment from other people, we allow it because we're not treating ourselves much better, if any better, right? Through the self-talk that we have. So treating yourself the way you want to be treated. Do you tell yourself that you deserve to be treated this way? Do you hear that thought sometimes? Do you believe you need to do better, to be better in order to be approved of and for the mistreatment to stop? Do you trust your intuition? Or do you rely on outside approval and outside validation? And so you continue to allow this to happen. And the one question I would ask you is this what you would tell a child, to just sit there and take it? If you saw a child, especially someone that you knew, your child, if you have children, if you saw them being talked to that way, would you tell them they just needed to sit there and take it? Not to walk away, not to defend themselves, not to speak up for themselves? Oh, I have something in my eye. No, you probably wouldn't. And my client, she has grandchildren, and she saw this person who mistreated her mistreating one of her grandchildren. And she said that her grandson is very much um the nice kid, right? And she said, "Why would she say these mean things to him?" And I said, "Because she knows he won't defend himself. He won't get up and walk away because we show other people how it's okay to treat us, right?" So she allowed her grandson to experience her being mistreated, and so he had started thinking that that was okay to be treated that way. So that is another reason to start standing up for yourself and setting boundaries and walking away if you need to show other people in your life what is okay with you and what's not okay with you, and what's okay for them and not okay for them. So no, you wouldn't tell a child just to sit there and take it. And I want you to start treating your inner child that way, because we all have, I have a little Heidi in me, and you have, a little child, your inner child in you, that you, the best thing to do is start to reparent your inner child to be be the parent to your child, your inner child, that you wanted in your life, or be the friend to your inner child that you want. Be the spouse to your inner child, the type of treatment that you want from that other person. So no, treat your inner child the way you want to be treated. And remember that 95% of this is programming, right? So your inner child is scared, thinks maybe they deserve it, and so start treating her or him like you want to be treated, and you know that you're born 100% whole and worthy and divine, and no one deserves to be mistreated. No one deserves that. You don't have to sit there and take it. So another thing you can do is, if necessary, with someone who continues to belittle you and berate you. If you've tried walking out, but the next time they didn't, they don't get it, that they do it, they go right back to that again, then you may need to go what's called no contact. And that means having no contact with that person. I understand with family members, it's a lot harder to do that. And so there's something called gray rock, the gray rock method. You can look both of those up. No contact or gray rock. Gray rock just means that you, in their presence, basically act like a gray rock. You have no emotions. It's talking about the weather. There's nothing personal in your conversations with these people. Again, no contact is what I went with my ex because I knew the minute I let a small crack get in the door, he would try to work his way back in full force. And so I had to go no contact. And it was really, really hard because we can get, it sounds weird, but we can get addicted to this type of behavior. Someone treating us this way who treats us really well at the beginning, we get a lot of dopamine built up, and then those dopamine receptors need more dopamine, and we basically get addicted. And that's how those people can go from what seems like loving relationship to a belittling, berating relationship. Maybe you have someone in your life though that it didn't happen that way. Maybe it's been a long term. Maybe it's a family member. If you can't go no contact, then start doing like I taught my client, basically gray rock. There's no emotions around this person. The answers are very short. Yes, no. If they try to start leading you down a path that you don't want to go, you just say, I'm not going to talk about it, and you walk out of the room. So there are some things that you can do to protect yourself, but walking away, as this commenter asked me, is not cowardly. You're not giving up by walking away. You are protecting your own peace and energy. No one else is going to do that for you. That is your responsibility. So start small, little boundaries, start speaking up for yourself. That's not okay. If you continue to talk to me that way, I'm going to walk out of the room. Or if you've tried that in the past, then just get up and leave the room. And if they ask later, you owe them no response. Most of these people know that they're doing this to you, but we've allowed them to get away with it for so long that they just are going to continue to do it. So we have to take responsibility, draw the line in the sand, start standing up for ourselves, start speaking up for ourselves, or walking away. Really depends on the situation. Each situation is different. I no longer talk to that ex-husband. I never had any more communication with him whatsoever other than the day in court. But I didn't have to communicate directly with him. Never have spoken to him again. I have a couple of friends who I no longer speak to, or if we do speak at a party or something, if I see them, it is very cordial and gray, right? Like the gray rock. Because I refuse to let them diminish my energy, diminish how I want to show up in the world. And that's what I was allowing people to do, is to diminish how I felt about myself and to diminish how I showed up in the world for the people who wanted me in their life, who accepted me as I was. And so it is up to you to protect your energy, to protect your own well being. And if that takes walking out, you are not being a coward. I say that it's especially for those of us that were taught to just sit and take it, it is very courageous to take that first step and that second step where you walk away from someone mistreating you and belittling you, berating you, and no longer tolerating that kind of behavior in your life. If you want to know more about your boundaries and where they might be most leaky or where how you could make them stronger, I have a free boundaries blind spot quiz. Our boundaries, a lot of times, things like this, you may have it may have been in your blind spot where you didn't even realize that you were sitting and tolerating people mistreating you, right? So a lot of things hide in our blind spot. And just like when we're driving in our car, we don't even know if the car is in our blind spot, we don't even know that it's there. We can't do anything about it. So I created this boundaries blind spot quiz. It's free. I have the link down in the description of this video, and you can grab that, take the quiz, and see what areas of your life where your boundaries maybe are pretty strong and the areas of your life where they're not so strong and where maybe you could use to focus on and build up healthier, stronger boundaries. So I appreciate you being here. If you're watching the replay, put your comments down in the comments or questions that you have about it, and I will be glad to answer them. And again, I appreciate you being here and sharing some time with me. And I will see you. I do a live stream every Wednesday. This happened to be a Sunday just because I was traveling, so I wanted to get one in this week. So I will see you in the next live stream on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Central Time. All right, take care.